Hello and welcome into Double A Baseball. Adam Oppenheim with Alex Hynes here on Monday, November 3rd. The World Series is over. It ends in 7 games, and the Dodgers are back-to-back champions with a thrilling Game 7 just a couple days ago. Dodgers, first team to go back-to-back since the Yankees three-peated from 98 to 2000. Alex, let's first start with how Game 7 went down.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like kind of a microcosm of this series too. I mean, with how crazy and wacky the entire 7 games were, it felt like all of that then just got crunched together into one singular 11 inning game 7. I mean, it had kind of a little bit of everything that you could have wanted. I mean, the fact that it just started out with 41-year-old Max Scherzer, who threw the most recent World Series Game 7 in 2019 for the Blue Jays, and Shohei Ohtani doing the one thing he'd yet to do, and start a Game 7 for the Dodgers. I mean, it just had a little bit of everything. And then you get down to that ninth inning, the Jays look like they win it. And then Miggy Rojas, of all people. I mean, I don't think you had that on your bingo card.
No one did. Come on now. Joe Davis didn't. I mean, no
Yeah.
way.
I mean, that summed up all of our reactions to that too. There was no way on a pitch that, like, he was way out in front of it too. I mean, looking at it again, it's just like it reminds me a lot of that Rajay Davis homer in 2016.
Yeah. I really can't think of many, not just baseball games, but sporting events that rival what we saw. The back
No.
and forth, the amount of changes and win probability charts, it was just absolutely nuts. Bichette gets the Blue Jays on the board early, and you're like, but the Dodgers are going to come back eventually, but they never really have a big inning. They score one in the fourth, one in the sixth, and obviously one in the ninth to keep the game alive into extras. I want to start in the ninth. I thought that's where the Blue Jays, it's not like, I mean, they lost it earlier a little bit, but they were still in prime position to win. They gave up a home run to Miguel Rojas, but still, they've been one of the best hitting teams in the MLB all season long, and it continued into the postseason. Varsho hits a ground ball to Rojas at second. Isaiah Connor Falefa, you take a look at the, camera that's above the fields. He had not a good lead, considering Muncy wasn't holding him on, and the secondary was not good at all. He should have been able to score on that ground ball and win the Blue Jays the game. That's the play I point to. And then ICAF comes back around in extras, and like what happened in game three, John Schneider was bringing all of his pieces from his bench into run, and then you don't have a bat like Bo Bichette later in the game.
Right. I mean, I think there are a couple caveats there. I know Whit Merrifield was on Twitter defending uh, Kiner Falefa a little bit because you don't want to get doubled off at third base. I would counter that by saying you've got a lefty hitter in
Lefty.
Dalton Varsho at the plate. If
Yeah.
it's Vlad, I'm a bit more worried about him smoking one to third base. But I think also though you have to. I can't complain too much though about IKF having to hit later in the game because one, you're trying to end that game there. It's not like this is game 3, game 2, where yes, you need to win, but like you got to be careful. This is game 7. You got to be going for the first possible exit you can.
Mhm.
And I mean, Bo Bichette just couldn't move. I mean that knee sprain he had in September was seemed to be killing him the whole series. Didn't hurt the bat, but you could tell running was just not going to do it for him. So I understand doing that. The problem is, you probably would rather pinch hit and find someone on your bench, but again, you shuffle things around during the course of the game. You don't really have another guy who can fill in there at second base. They'd already used Davis Schneider, who is going to be their best offensive bat from the bench. So there's obviously that element there too. But I mean, you got to give some credit though to Miguel Rojas at second base because he nearly fumbled that ball in his glove, and we're nearly not talking about it at all.
And Will Smith held on to the
Yeah,
plate. It looked like for a moment on the replay, like he was not on the plate.
it would have been so frustrating though if that was how it ended.
I didn't
Because
want it to end
I,
in a walk or a hit by
yeah,
pitch. That would have been awful.
and I didn't want it to end that way either. I mean, I would have been fine if it was a ball in the infield and say Rojas fumbles it and they score. But going to video review,
Yeah.
like that would have been I think that would have been even more anticlimactic than a walk or a hit by pitch in that situation. So I'm glad that's how it worked out because if we're talking about, the width of a cleat, I mean, that's when we're microanalyzing a World Series Game 7. But I think that though overall felt like why this game felt so much different than any other Game 7, any other World Series game in recent memory, at least, with maybe one or two exceptions. The fact that there were so many chances, yet so few runs capitalized on. You look at that, and you look at again the bottom of the 11th inning with the Jays trying to tie it up, first and third, one out, a chance to try and bring that tying run home, even the winning run home after Vlad doubled to start the inning, and there were so many opportunities. And obviously, it's a homer from Will Smith. That's the go-ahead hit. The homer by Rojas that ties the game. But there were so many base runners, so many chances, and the pitching or the lack of hitting at times held firm enough that it felt so much more different than, say, your standard pitcher's duel in a game 7, or a situation like, say, 2001 where the D-backs scrounge back with 2 outs against Mariano Rivera. This game had so much going back and forth on just sort of teasing you into thinking that something was going to happen and then pulling away at the last moment and saying, hey, we get out of this inning.
It was cinema, the
Yeah.
game. And you felt like the longer it went, the more it was going to favor the Dodgers because Yoshinobu Yamamoto was in the bullpen and he was supposedly ready to pitch in game 3 if the game went any longer. And he was ready to pitch off 6 innings the day before after a complete game earlier in the series, going all 9 innings. And then he was able to close the door, wins MVP. I mean, completely well deserved. I don't think any of us were thinking that a pitcher had a chance to really win MVP unless they throw 2 complete games. But he pitched 3 times, closed out game 7. And man, the Dodgers, you know what? They didn't use a lot of their bullpen pretty much. They just used starting pitchers, especially in game 7. And it works out well. I mean, Blake Snell got around trouble. Tyler Glass now pitched pretty well in game 7 as well. Uh, the Blue Jays were kind of going in these arms they just didn't trust. And then Jeff Hoffman, who was bad in the regular season, all things considered. In the postseason, he was absolutely great. But then came back to bite him. The home run ball with 1 out against a bad hitter on a 3-2 count. And I'll point out, you don't want to walk Miguel Rojas to put him on. You're forced to throw a strike. And you know who knows that? Miguel Rojas. And he takes the bitch deep.
Yeah, and I think, the other thing is like I'm more surprised you went slider there. I mean, like, yes, I get 3-2, fastball count, I guess, so to speak. Not quite as much as other counts maybe, but a 3-2 slider, he hangs it. I think, in that situation you're probably thinking fastball, but you got Otani on deck again, as you say. Like, you can't put him on knowing that it's Otani, and then you got the real meat of that Dodger order coming up with Will Smith and then Freddie Freeman if it gets even worse. And the home run ball, yeah, it was the bugaboo for him all year long. I think all things considered, good credit should go to guys like Chris Bassett. He gives up a run, but Bassett was great in a relief role. Varland came in early, got Otani out. Most importantly, um, coming in for Scherzer, Sir Anthony Dominguez didn't look great, but he got the job done.
Hey,
And even
Scherzer,
Shane Bieber,
yeah. I mean,
yeah,
Scherzer was solid, man.
you can't really complain about the Jays pitching in this game. I mean, I think again for the concerns about I think we had concerns about the Jays bullpen as much as we did about the Dodger bullpen. Now Jeff Hoffman had been great in the postseason outside of one run he allowed in the wild card series. But again, you still had the sort of feeling in the back of your brain of the home run balls he gave up in the regular season. Um, but again, I just go back to the fact that the pitcher on the Dodgers that threw the most innings in game 7 was Yoshinobu Yamamoto. He threw 2 2/3. I mean, it's one thing pitching the day after just to go an inning or two, maybe at
or an
most,
out.
get a couple outs. But he's going longer than Blake Snell, who threw in game 5. He's throwing more than Tyler Glass now, who was essentially going to be bullpen guy. And he threw more than Shohei Ohtani, who I think I'd argue went a little bit longer than he probably should have, knowing that you've got guys that can give a bit more length. And I mean that's the reason why he deserved the MVP. I mean Yamamoto did not look challenged all series long, and I mean he's a guy that's just so stoic, so calm. I think John Smoltz said it best. He doesn't break a sweat out there. I mean he just looks like he's completely monotone the entire time until you see him jump in the air after the final out.
It was just absolutely incredible. And the thing is, Dave Roberts is gonna get a lot of credit for pushing the right buttons.
And he should.
And yeah, because I mean, he's had a lot of hate in recent years for, a manager who's won a lot of games and World Series. Most importantly, it was early in the game the decision to keep Ohtani in. If the Blue Jays won that game, Dodgers fans would have been like, why'd you keep Ohtani in that situation? But that's where, especially in these tight games, it comes down to like one small decision here and there. But in this game, the fact that there were so many small decisions that any of them go a different way and the game is flipped to the Blue Jays winning is just crazy. And if the Blue Jays won, you would have said the same thing for the Dodgers. Man, if they just had this go right, it would be a different game. I mean, Varsho, I think this was the game he had the diving catch in center field.
Yeah.
If that's by him, I think I was with the bases loaded, maybe.
It was a big spot.
Let
Trying
me
to
check.
remember what inning it was in, but there
Uh,
was, yes, a great play he made.
yep, sacrifice fly. It was bases loaded with
Yes, yeah,
one out, and he makes a diving play. And if that gets by him, that's 3 runs.
right. And I mean, I think the other thing also for Dave Roberts, I mean, you move Will Smith up in the order. Mookie had been struggling. And Will Smith obviously ends up the hero. We're talking about the 11th inning, not the first inning, where lineup construction doesn't necessarily mean as much. But I mean, Will Smith was hitting well. He just moves him up in the order. Bringing in Miggy Rojas in the place of Andy Pajes. I mean, Andy Pajes had a great regular season. His postseason was woeful. And decides, you know what, we're going to go with, as I think Robert said, the guy I trust here, and he went with Miggy Rojas the final 2 games. Gets the homer. I don't think anybody, again, that could not have been foreseen by Dave Roberts, but even just bringing in that solidity defensively, like you see in the bottom of the ninth inning, being able just to find a way to claw his way to throw that ball to home plate. I think there's a lot of credit for the small things, even from game to game, in this final series. That again, Dave Roberts earns all the credit for the moves he made, and now I think we've seen that this Dodgers team. I think for me, that what really stood out is this Dodgers team. Yes, they've won back-to-back World Series, but this one means a little bit more, I think, just because it showed that this was a game and a series that was more than just talent on this team. They really had to grit it and earn it.
No doubt about it. And you mentioned Pajas. I'm going to go back to the play. I think it was in the ninth where he runs
Hmm.
over Kike Hernandez, who was trying to make a Willie Mays catch, knocks him over, catches the ball, and moves us into extras. There were so many plays that both teams really made defensively that stood out. I mean, the Blue Jays cut down a runner at home as well, and extras. That ball was to Jimenez, it's shortstop, I believe. But across the board, I mean, I think this postseason, like I said earlier, it showed more than ever that defense matters, and these two
Oh
teams
yeah.
were absolutely great defensively. The pitching was also good, but defensively, I mean, how many tough plays did Vlad make at first base?
There
Um,
was a great diving play he made in game 7 too.
yep, yep, there was.
The
But
other one that sticks out to me, just sorry, is the end of game 6. KK Hernandez charged in, makes
hmm
the catch. They double off. I think was that Barger? Um,
yep, Barger.
and again, now the great part of that is you gotta get your situational awareness up when you're on the base pass. But Hernandez, who plays everywhere, he's not a guy that's necessarily goes into a position and says, I'm in this spot 9 innings a game, every game. This is all second nature. He's had to float around his entire career in different spots. And to have that kind of situational awareness to know I got a rifle at the second, he's off the bag, to try and end that game, and he does. I think that's a play that you're not going to necessarily star it in your scorebook to say, "Wow, that was a fantastic odds-defying catch," but it was a heady play that you needed.
Yeah, I mean the rest of the series it was just wild. I mean, game three was just an absolute classic. I didn't think we'd see anything like 2018 World Series game, but we did. I mean, it was the
Yeah.
same length, I believe, 18 innings.
Yep.
And
And just 40 minutes shorter in run time
yeah,
than
I
that.
mean, people complain about the pitch clock now when you're up late. Come on, man. But Freddie Freeman again coming up clutch. I mean, I don't know what other games we want to focus on. Maybe the series as a whole.
Well, just
Um,
talking about game three just for a minute, because
yeah,
gosh, I mean, first off, shout out Will Klein, pride of Bloomington, Indiana.
that's right. That's right.
I
Um,
mean, that was absurd. I mean, I did a little bit of research. He had not thrown, I believe, more than 3 innings and he'd not thrown, I think it was 3 innings, and certainly he had not thrown over 70 pitches like he did since the second to last game of his college career in 2020 with Eastern Illinois. And he goes out in a World Series game in a tie game in extras and throws 4 innings. Talk all you want about the lineup construction at the end of the game for the Jays, because that played a factor. But he just started mowing guys down, gave up 1 hit, 2 walks. I mean, he looked like he was, a grizzled veteran that, had done this before.
that game was just amazing as a whole, and Will Klein being the hero was great. And like you mentioned, people talk about the spending of this Dodgers team, but it ends up being some really unsung heroes. Enrique Enriquez was great as well. Um, Clayton Kershaw got the one out, the bases loaded. That was huge. Emmett
That's a great
Sheehan
way for him to go out.
pitched well.
Kershaw kind of facing those demons, you know, bases loaded to come in with 2 outs, getting that for the final out that he gets in his career, going out on top. That's the way to do it. And, say what you want about the postseason ERA. That was a good moment. And seeing him celebrate after game seven too. I mean, you no matter who you support, you've gotta feel a little bit of something watching that.
No doubt. And you thought once the Dodgers won this game, they were going to take over the series.
Yeah.
And I mean, how surprised? I was pretty surprised that the Blue Jays were able to bounce back and then take the next two on the road. And that just kind of showed this Blue Jays run. They were for real, man. They were a good baseball team. We talked about it before. It was not going to be easy like it was for the Dodgers and the CS and the DS and the wild card as well. We might as well throw the Reds in there. But yeah, this Blue Jays team would keep fighting. They would score first. They would pick up important runs in the first inning, and this was all while George Springer was hurt. So they had to move their lineup around. The subs coming in. It was wild.
Yeah, and I think that the Blue Jays, I think when we get a chance to look back, in a couple months' time and truly, you know, being clear of the moment, actually look at this team, and what they did, it'll, regardless of say where Bo Bichette ends up in free agency, we'll have our free agency shows, in the coming months as things go along. This was a team that this was not a linear path for them,
No,
certainly. We've talked a lot about the issues with the front office in getting a competitive team going around Vlad, around Bichette, around now Springer, the last couple of years. And, this was a team that was, again, not driven necessarily, it's driven by stars, yes, but not driven fully because of stars, the same way that World Series teams of the past have been. And the supporting cast was really the perfect combination of things, and you really kind of just saw that this was both a unique team but not a fluky team. The way that I think we kind of polarize things, it's superstar studded teams on one side It's the, you know, everything aligns at the right time, teams on the other. This Jays team is perfectly in the middle in a kind of rare air.
Yeah, I like that comparison. I mean, you talk about the supporting cast, the guys at the bottom of the lineup. Andres Jimenez had a good postseason, all things considered. Ernie Clement, I mean, are you serious? He was just unbelievable. Um, Barger was great with the bat and also has a rocket of an arm. I think he threw out Freeman at home in game three,
Mhm.
and the throw was like 94 or something like that. It was crazy. Varsho had some big hits. It was like everyone up and down the lineup. Every player on the Blue Jays you can point to a play. Maybe they didn't make it in the World Series, but in the postseason that would have made them a hero if the Blue Jays won the World Series, and maybe still does because they got there. And who's to say they can't, make it back? It's obviously going to be easier pass for a team like the Dodgers who have a bunch of superstars, but right now Vegas is thinking, "Oh, the Dodgers don't have a chance to get back." But that's not how baseball works. You bring some
Right.
of the same players back if they can get hot at the right time like they did. They can certainly make another run in the AL.
And I think, we've now kind of gotten the cautionary tale of Texas and Arizona from 2023. Neither team has made the postseason since. Only one season, I think, has either team finished above 500 in the last 2 years. But there's something about this Jays team. Again, there are those teams. I don't want to downplay the Diamondbacks. It's not meant to be a slight on them, but there was elements of that team, the young great players, Corbin Carroll, etc. But there was an element of that team that was a little bit of luck, everything clicking at the right time, which you do need to win a World Series to make it to a World Series. But that is the variability where there's no guarantee that that's going to happen again. And so there's times where it's just you get your one shot. If you don't take it, tough. But I do think for this Jays team, the pieces that they have that maybe again there was a little bit of luck involved, a little bit of just performing at the right time. There's still something in the back of your mind, assuming they make the right moves to figure out what's going to happen with, say, Bichette with the pitching staff, knowing that Max Scherzer is going to be 42, and you've got other guys that are getting older, and you're not sure about. There's still a lot more confidence than I think some other teams that this Toronto team can not only be in this spot again, but we will be thinking about them heading into the season as a team that can easily make their way back to the playoffs, make their way back to the World Series, behind the returning group that they'll have.
And I'll say this, it helps a lot more when you have a young pitcher, young starting pitcher, a guy like Trey Savage, who not only showed he was dominant against the Yankees, it wasn't a fluky start because he pitched
Oh,
so well throughout the postseason, including against this Dodgers team. And you gotta feel good about him. Um, Gosman. I mean, you have other pieces on the pitching staff. If they could just spend a little bit more for maybe not even, let's say, a high end bullpen arm, but a pretty solid, proven postseason performer in the bullpen, that'd be huge. Another starting pitcher. I mean, you feel good about a lot of your bats. Even though they left a ton of runners in scoring position in this series, especially in games 3 and 7, and left a ton of men on base. I mean, man, the Blue Jays were right there. They were right there.
yeah, and I mean, remember they also have Anthony Santander, who now obviously they'll hope he is the guy they want him to be offensively, but he's locked up long term, and he's a power bat that it really felt like they lacked a little bit of that. They got some homers here and there. Varsho had one early in the series. Barger had several throughout the postseason in support of guys like Vlad Springer, your proven playoff performers now. But there's I think a lot of confidence around this team as well because you are a major market team, and I think for all we've criticized the front office of the Jays, getting to this point is less a proof of concept, but proof that, hey, we can be here.
Right.
And so I think there's nothing that builds confidence. and builds motivation for a front office to actually spend money and make that big aggressive splash than making that next extra step, whatever it is, whether it's making the playoffs for a team that hasn't in a while, making a deep run wherever that may be, or making it to a World Series like the Jays did. That's enough usually when you have the resources like the Jays do to give you a little bit of a kick in the pants to say, all right, hey, let's do this now and make sure that this is a regular occurrence.
And you could see that the whole country was behind them. So,
Yeah.
and honestly, the US as well. I just didn't want to see the Dodgers win again. But I mean, their fans were showing up. Rogers Center was just rocking. That's one of the best places for a playoff game, and that's why, we haven't seen that a lot in recent years. And man, the Springer go-ahead home run against the Mariners in Game 7, that was incredible. The Vlad Grand Slam against the Yankees, that was in Game 1, I want to say, of the divisional series. They had a ton of moments that were great for the Blue Jays, and that's why it hurts a little bit more them not winning because the underdogs were right there. They were one swing away, one pitch away. And that's not to discredit the Dodgers because they did everything. I know there was some Blue Jays color analyst, I forgot who it was, who was like, I don't want to sound like sour grapes, but the Blue Jays were the better team. And I'm not saying I agree with him, but the Blue Jays played a brand of baseball that wins a lot of World Series. I'll say that. The way they swung the bat and their pitching staff, who is claimed as not very good. I mean, we both thought that the bullpen was not very good. And they stepped up in a big way. All their bullpen arms down the stretch. Sure, they might have worked into traffic, but they were also able to work out of traffic in many games down the stretch and, push the series to 7. They won Game 1 after a devastating Game 3 loss. Everyone counts them out. They win Games 4 and 5.
Yeah, and I think again, it's sort of to that point. Um, I think you can argue there's an argument that the Jays were the better team and the Dodgers were just the more opportunistic. Which again, you need to be the opportunistic team, to win. And I mean, you look at the stats. Again, I'm not going to say this is a huge difference because we're talking about a 7 game sample, but I mean the Jays. The staff ERA across 7 games of 3.21. They hit well. They actually had a higher OPS in the series than the Dodgers did, who got on base at a 294 clip only. So again, that's not to knock the Dodgers and say they weren't deserving because they got the plays they needed to when they did. But this is again a Jays team. When you finish the way they did, you can easily say that, hey, you know, there's plenty to take away from here to say that, hey, we played well enough to win the World Series. It didn't go our way. You can't necessarily just say, oh, well, ho hum, after losing a World Series. But there's plenty you can take away from this and say, hey, this team did all that in the large sample could be asked of them. And I think there's, in 2, 3 months' time, again, when this is all wears off, you can take pride in that. It's kind of like what we talked about with the Mariners.
Yeah, but the difference was this team was picked fourth or fifth in the AL East.
Yeah.
The Mariners were supposed to for years. um, at least be able to make it to the championship series and maybe beyond, which they were able to this year for the first time in a very long time. I just think the AL side of the bracket, looking back at the whole postseason, it was just absolutely wild. The amount of
Yeah.
awesome games we got. I mean, even Tigers Guardians. I thought that was a pretty good series considering they were battling out for the division all year. Guardians come back, steal the division, then lose to the Tigers. Tarek Skubal pitching every few days, it seemed like. Game 5, um, that long one between the Tigers and Mariners, that was incredible. Game
Right.
7, Blue Jays Mariners, the game that has just been turned upside down. You know,
I mean,
because
there's,
you look at it on the NL side, there were some exciting games, but like, I mean, the
yeah.
AL was just incredible.
I remember seeing a tweet, and again, I'm gonna have to paraphrase here because I don't have it up in front of me, and I can't remember where I even found it. But it was something along the lines of the Tigers suffered a gut-wrenching, heartbreaking loss to the Mariners, who suffered a bigger heartbreaking loss to the Blue Jays, who suffered an even bigger heartbreaking loss to the Dodgers. And I mean, that's real. And you could even
Yeah.
throw in Cleveland in game 3 of the wild card against the Tigers at the very beginning of that, whole domino chain. And it gave you everything you could ask for in the excitement level. And again, it's heartbreak for the team that lost, but it is exactly what you ask for as a neutral to be able to watch meaningful games, get to that game five, that game seven, where anything is possible, anything can happen, everything matters. And we saw basically anything that could possibly happen in a postseason all happen at some point during this last month.
Yeah, and truly, I mean, it just finished off in the most incredible way.
Yeah.
That's why we're gonna remember the postseason from 2025. It's Game 7 of the World Series that goes into extras. I mean, thinking about the other sports, as we just have a few minutes left here, it's very hard to compare this to at least sports we've seen in our lifetime since 2000. I was born in 2002. Um, in the NBA, 2016 Game 7, Cavs and Warriors. That's probably about it on the NBA side. Maybe 2013 Heat and Spurs. On the NFL side, there's really not a ton. Maybe Super Bowl 49, Malcolm Butler's goal line interception that flipped the game. Um, there's not a ton in our lifetime that come to mind that's like that was crazy. In the MLB, Cardinals Rangers World Series, Game 6, David Freese. That was bananas. Um, 2016, obviously Cubs winning. There's not a whole lot of those. I'm gonna remember that game forever, and a lot of the little moments as well. The runners getting thrown out at home. How many of those games can you even think of? There's not many across all
Right.
sports.
And I think that's the other thing too, where you think of like other games, just looking at baseball specifically, you look at other game sevens. Yeah, you remember, or you remember or you see, depending on, whether you were around for these given games. Everyone, remembers the Kirk Gibson homer in game one of 88. They remember Luis Gonzalez's walk-off single off of Mariano Rivera in 01. They remember the plays, but you don't remember the entirety of the game. 2016 game seven, you remember the game. And, obviously fans of teams will remember every series. But this postseason had multiple games in each series that you can remember almost entirely. You'll remember game seven. You'll remember game three going to 18 innings. You'll remember the ALCS game seven with the Mariners and Jays. You'll remember that walk off for the Mariners to send them to the championship series. You'll remember, say, Otani's three-homer game in the NLCS. There's so many more moments that are going to stand out among this playoffs, in one series, and even in one game, multiple plays, more so than any other series I think we've ever seen, at least in modern history.
Yeah, and I think one that shouldn't be forgotten is that Springer home run
Yeah.
against Seattle. I mean,
Hmm.
man, it was loud. That was just incredible. The Freeman home run in game 3. We didn't really talk about it a ton, but that was incredible. Second straight year that Freddie Freeman has hit a walk-off home run. I mean, are you serious? I mean, this one, the game was tied instead of, I think they were down one of the Yankees last year. But yeah, this was one that certainly we'll remember for our lives, for our lifetime. And you cannot say this every year about the postseason. We
Oh,
we both
right.
love the MLB postseason, but this postseason, I can't think of another one since I've started watching baseball like really closely for the past decade or so, longer than that even. That had a World Series that had the ups and downs of this, and maybe and probably even the postseason as a whole.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I mean, the other thing, there were five extra inning games in this entire postseason. There were, there was one, there were several extra late inning games. The ALCS game seven, it wasn't in extras, but it was a one-run game decided late. I mean, think about how many games like that. You just hope for one of those games in a playoff where it's like, man, this game is down to the wire. It has what you feel. There were five games that went to extra innings, and you get an 18 inning game. You get one in the World Series. You get one to clinch a division series. I mean, there's, it's really difficult to put into words, just everything that was going on in this in this playoff and the significance behind something this exciting.
And I will say, in extras, it makes it better that the regular season there's a runner starting at second, and in the playoffs we're back to the old-fashioned way, and that made it extremely fun. Alex, any
Yeah.
final thoughts here?
I just want to give you one little bit of quick credit here. You didn't get your prediction. Neither of us got our prediction right. We said Dodgers in six, and our MVPs were wrong. But you did say Varsho was going to have a big homer and a big catch. You said the same game. He did hit a homer
He
in
had two big
Toronto in game
catches
two,
in the
and he had a
series.
couple big catches. And you also had Will Smith as your MVP, and he hit the go-ahead homer in the
I'll
World
take that.
Series. Yamamoto obviously outshines him, but I'm going to give you the props there at least because
I appreciate it.
you were on the mark.
Who'd you say for MVP again?
I had Teoscar, which didn't quite work.
Yeah, he was
So
good. He was great
and
the
he had a
rest of
good
the
series.
postseason.
Yeah.
So I wasn't a bad pick, but he cooled off. Um, but man, that was fun. Thanks for following along with us all season long. We'll be back for the off season in the coming weeks. Probably next week we'll have a show, and then we'll see where we go with everything moving forward. But once again, more baseball content on the way. If you haven't already, and stay to the end of this episode. We appreciate if you would hit that subscribe button here for us on YouTube for Double A Baseball. So, for the final time, at least for the 2025 when baseball is being played, for Alex Hynes, I'm Adam Oppenheim. We'll see you next time on Double A Baseball.